Hey everyone, hey, it's Casey here. Give me 1 second. I'm just setting up my screen and we'll go over a few cool things. Thanks everyone for attending. I know it's sort of late at night. Hopefully it's not a bad time for people in WA and Queensland. So time is an issue. Time daylight saving times, although we're not in daylight saving times yet, are we? But that'll be another issue come a couple more days. I think that starts September 30th. Got a few other people joining, but what we'll do is we'll get started in a second. I'm just setting up my screen. Tonight we're going to go over template building, custom document creation. So really the bread and butter of an AI scribe. Sort of the things we'll go over tonight are things that you could use for any scribe. Hopefully you'd use it for MBSPro, but you can use it for any scribe. And it's a really important part of the actual scribing component. I know that with MBSPro we sort of advertise a lot of the other features that we do. We're really GP specific, but getting the scribe template right for you is the most important thing. That's what you do every day with your patients. That's how the patients documentate. That's how the patient's documentation is created. So getting it right, making sure it is specific to what you do and how you write your notes is really important. So let me share my screen. And yep, we've got everyone there. Excellent. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. Hopefully you can hear me as well. Now, this is all recorded. This goes up on our intercom page. So just let me show you that really quick so you know where these things sort of go. So we have a help desk. It's called intercom. Essentially what that is our help page, which you can search. It has all our videos. So how to get started, how to use the pre-consult, how to do the integration. And it's got videos on how these things, sort of work. So for example, if you want to do the best practice integration, it's got, pictures and images. The masterclasses, so tonight's session, go up into the MBSPro Masterclass area. We did a masterclass last month. My internet dropped out, so it didn't record, which was a pain. Rural life. So this recording will go up here. We've also got some other videos here, which I'll show you, which are just sort of like 2-minute explainers of a lot of the item codes that you can utilize. So hopefully that's helpful. So all of this gets recorded, put up here, which you can access. Intercom is also our help function. So what that means is if you go to our website, mbspro.com.au, you can press this little thing here and you can ask questions. And this essentially goes directly to like a chat bot. It links in with that website I showed you, but if you ask a question, it'll go to a chat bot that goes to me, and I can hopefully walk you through sort of any issues. So if you have any issues, let me know. But tonight we're going to go through custom document creation, template creation, and if we've got a bit of time towards the end, I'll just show you a few cool features unrelated to that. So this is the main splash screen. So you log on to MBSPro. This is what you'll see. The custom document creation exists in 2 areas. Let me just start up a new one actually, sorry, because I don't want to disturb those things, because I'll show you that in a second. So this is a brand new page, you've just logged on. A couple of quick things to note. Of course, document creation relies on the ability to hear you, the GP, and your patient. So up in the top right-hand corner is our microphone. So you can see it's sort of looking blue. That's because it's hearing what I'm saying. If it is red and I don't say anything, you'll see that it stops moving. Well, it stops moving. If it's red, it means it's like not connected. So usually means it's a microphone issue. So this is where you can click on it and see which microphones are selected. The best thing in terms of documentation is a really clear microphone and transcription. So the way that AI works is we talk, it records it, it turns it into a transcript. So literally a big document of everything that's been said, and then the AI sort of intelligently puts it together and creates your note from it. So being aware of that, obviously if it can't hear you, it can't do anything. The other little feature that we've added in is that when you start a consult, if you don't say anything for the first couple of seconds because the microphone's not working or some issue is occurring, it should tell you. So if I don't say anything right now, you can see that it's gone red. And then if it doesn't pick up anything, you'll get a big red banner that displays here. So I'll pause it there. So that's how it'll work. So hopefully it just alerts people to it not working. Now, if you want to customize your templates, there's a couple of ways of doing that. So we'll jump right in there. The two main ways are either through our sort of template section or just simply clicking down here to select the template. So the templates that are in here are all the templates that we've put in as, I guess, like default templates, I guess you'd say. You can modify the default templates or you can create your own, whichever one is easiest. I find that modifying a base template is sort of easier, and then you can modify it to do the things that you want to do. So I've got a few examples of that. However, feel free to use the templates that are here. We've tried to provide a number of different templates that we think are, pretty commonly used. So things like your SOAP format, kids check, skin check, H&P, so like a history and physical with different detailed levels, problem lists, so on and so forth. You can, of course, customize all of this. The other section, which I'll just jump onto quickly before we go into the customizing of templates, is the create section. The create section, what it does is it essentially grabs out from the transcript everything related to a specific thing. So if you click on create template and go mental health care plan review or mental health care plan, it'll grab out the mental health related things and fill out a template, but on that specific thing. So that's different to a problem list template, which will go problem 1, high blood pressure, problem 2, low mood, problem 3, repeat scripts. So a general template puts everything together, but in a format that is hopefully, useful and looks good to you. Whereas these create templates pull out everything related to a specific thing. So your heart health check, your menopause check, your Indigenous health assessment, so on and so forth. So let's go to our templates. So I usually click on this one, and let's say I wanted to modify problem list. I really like problem list. That's pretty much my default template. I want to change it though. I want to change it to be slightly different. I want to add in, say, a systems review, for example. So I click on the, customized template. What you'll find in this template editor is a number of different things. So we've got the name of the template. So, put in anything you want. So I'm going to call this problem list with a systems review. So I want to do that. I can provide a description. This is a description to not only yourself, but also to the AI about what it needs to do. So the way the AI works, and this is the same across any AI, any transcription AI, is that it needs two things, or even three things. It needs a description of what it's meant to be doing. It needs structure, which is kind of like the blueprint of, like a car. If you're building like a car or a house or something, you have the architect pull up a blueprint. A blueprint is what the structure will be like. And then the example is like an example house or example, brand new car. It puts both of those things together and turns the information that you've given it through the console into that thing via the structure and the example. So in this description, I've said provide granular detail, consolidate issues when related. So if I talk about, hypertension at the start of consult and then come back towards the end of the consult and say, oh yeah, your blood pressure is a bit high, let's start you on the Ramipril, it'll just put it under one thing, hypertension, blood pressure is this, started on Ramipril, as opposed to sort of splitting it up. I've said omit headings if square brackets, if they're not mentioned. So for example, if I do not do a systems review, it will just not put it in. Or if I don't talk about mental health, it will not put it in. Use, English spelling, so English Great Britain spelling. Use medical terminology where possible. Be concise with your wording. Don't include any extra words. So there's a couple of ways that you can modify templates. This is called prompting or prompt engineering. Essentially, AI has a ton of data in it. AIs are trained on data sets from things like Twitter, in the case of Grok, or from Google and Facebook and yada, yada, yada. All that data is chucked into this thing called AI, and we only want to pull out specific bits of wording and details. We don't want to use the whole AI. We just want to use little bits and pieces of it. That way, that's the reason why we prompt and say, look, don't include all these extra things. Yes, AI is super smart and has all this extra information, but it's often erroneous, so we don't need it when we're doing our templates. So let's go to our structure. This is just a pre-built structure for our problem list template, but I'm going to add in a system review. So the way that you can do that is essentially just enter in here. Let's put it in brackets. We'll go systems review. And then in terms of what we want it to include, I want it to include a systems review of pertinent systems where applicable. So, for example, if a patient comes in with an ERTI, I really only want to ask about, probably like lung type systems review. I'm not going to say, how is your muscular system? So it'll only put in relevant things. Now, the beauty and randomness of AI is that it might find a connection that perhaps we haven't. For example, it might say, oh, well, your knee pain might be relevant because knee pain can be related to an ERTI because I read this article and it's in my database, and that's sort of the way the AI works. So a lot of this can be a bit of trial and error, figuring out, the best way of putting these things. But let's try this. Now, a way that we can give you an example of what it would look like is in the right-hand side. So we give it an example, say, look, we want to include systems review of pertinent issues, but we only want it to, in the context of this example, discuss. So we'll put here, we'll go bold systems review, and we'll say, because we talked about in this example, we talked about mental health, we talked about flu. So I might talk about, chest symptoms or like B-type symptoms to ensure that this flu isn't actually, a cancer or something like that. And then we might also talk about, diabetic symptoms. But let's just say, nil B symptoms, no weight loss, and let's say no joint pains. It's not a terrible ERTI glandular fever type thing. You can put in as little or as much information as you want. The more information that you give the AI, the more specific it can be. So that's what we can do here. Now, let's say we can't think of anything. So I thought, yes, I want to include a systems review, but I can't actually think what that means. You don't have to put this in. So let's delete this and I'll show you what we can do. We've already included in here. We just said we want a systems review. We want it to include pertinent information related to the systems. Pertinent information, I'll change this, pertinent information related to the systems discussed where applicable. What we can do is we can go generate example. So the AI will look at your structure and then generate what it thinks is an example of the structure. You can then modify it. You can tell it to generate another example, and that's the way that we can build these things. So another way of looking at this is if you've got a structure that you really like. For example, you've got a concise note. So I've got another example, which I'll show you in a second. Really, really concise note. You go through, the presentation of the condition. I've come in, sore toe. You do a quick exam and then an impression and plan. You can put that in your structure and then get it to generate an example, and it will pull out the example from that structure of which it will base its future notes on. So here we are, we've done our systems review, it's generated it for us, it's looked at the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, gastrointestinal system, and genitourinary system. Now I'd probably say, not too worried about the genitourinary system. I know it's in the context of this patient having diabetes, so I guess that makes sense. So what I might do is pull that out, and I might just include cardiovascular and respiratory. And I'm happy with that template now. So I will go save template. It's saved as problem list plus systems review. So let's go to our current consult. It'll load up there. Let's just start a whole new consult because we did 10 seconds of that other one. And go new. We'll go new now. We'll go new now. Here we are. New. Boom. Sometimes there is a bit of a bug of going to a new consult. I get that. So on the list to fix. So if we go to our templates here, and we can go down to problem list, you can see I've done a few examples. Problem list with systems review, and that is our template, and that's the way that I write. We can go select template or make default, and that's now our template that will be working, and you can see it's displayed down here. Now, if you've got a template that you like, so for example, say you liked the default template, which was problem list. Say you like problem list, but you thought it was a bit too wordy, which it can be. So we'll select this template. You can go to this cogwheel here. So this is the scribe settings. This is where you can change your language. This is where you can change what model is used. So we include all of the major large language models. So things like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini, as well as one other one, which I cannot remember. But all of these here, you can also include detail levels. So if you like the default template, but you felt that it was too wordy, you can change it down to low detail. And what it does is it just generally cuts out the detail and makes it more concise. Say you want it more wordy though. You like a really, really long note. A long note is often really good when you give it more information. So a note is best related to how much time you spent. If you've written, if you've spent, say, 5 minutes with a patient, it is better to use a smaller template because it's not going to pull out just random information that makes the note more valuable. But if you do a really long consult, it often makes sense to do a longer note with more detail because it will take into context all of the detail that you've discussed during your 40-minute consult and create a really great note. The other things that you can customize: bullet points, quotes. So it'll include quotes from the patient. If the patient says, I hit my head and it was as sore as or it was 10 out of 10 pain, or my eye was super throbbing, or something like that. Abbreviations can be included or not included as well. So sort of like medical abbreviations. So that's like a really handy way of changing things in terms of the default templates if you don't want to modify the templates too much. So let's go back to our another couple of examples that I've got here. Where was it? Not this one. Here we are. So this is just the problem list template again. Now let's say I want to not do the problem list template. I want to change it to the SOAP template and slightly modify that. The way that you can do that is you can go add a starter template and say, well, actually say we wanted to do the infant check, but we wanted to change it to include developmental milestones. So we can include that in here again, developmental milestones, and we'll go include a short history on developmental milestones. And then we can go like that, and we can get the AI to generate an example for us, so we don't need to think of a specific concern, and that will make it easier for the AI to sort of, well, for us actually, to figure out what's going on. So you can see here it was briefly discussed. Now you want to change it to be discussed more. You can add in more, include further history on developmental milestones. Or you can change this to instead of short history, include a long history, long detailed history and developmental milestones. And what this will do is it will, when we regenerate the template, let me include another one, further social history we'll put here. History relevant to milestones. What this will do is it will generate an example for us. Let's get rid of that one. It will generate an example taking into account what we've put into the structure. So this is one way of modifying your templates. You can use the ones that we've included and then modify them. You can also include, so you can see it's a bit more history about how it works. So you can modify the templates that we've put on as a starter, or you can build your own, or you can import some, or you can create them from a prompt. So let's look at the other ways that you can create scribe templates. So another way of accessing it, you can go into scribe templates. Under the templates, you can go add new scribe. So we've got 4 major ways. So the first way that we've talked about is creating it from an existing note. So we've done it from the notes, from the templates that we've created. A couple of other easy ways, so you can import it. So if you have a really great note from another scribe, or you've got a great note that you've created, you can put it in here and it will create the template based on the structure and the example content for you. So that's an easy way of doing that. Let's go back for 1 second. You can also create it from scratch with the assistance of our, the AI. So you can put in here, say we're going to do a really concise SOAP template. We'll put here super concise, short SOAP template. We can put in here, it's going to be structured, so it's going to be subjective, short history of presenting complaint. We want a physical exam. I'm going to space that out a little bit. OBS, if mentioned, physical exam, brief, and then let's just go straight to the plan. Like this is a super brief one. Plan, assessment of patient, list of plan details. And again, we can tell the AI to generate that for us. So that's how we can create a really, really short, brief note, but get AI to do most of the heavy lifting. So we've got a very short note for a patient that's come in with 3-month history of shortness of breath, and we've sort of done a physical exam and got a plan there for them as well. So that's one way of creating it. I'll get out of that. Go back to my scribe, so you can create from scratch. You can import a template from another scribe, just your own created template. That's really great from an existing note. Now, the final way that I want to show you, plus a few other things that we'll go through, is creating it just from a prompt. So you're busy, you don't have time to look through and sort of create the template. We can just do it with AI. So say you wanted to do women's health review, you can just click on that and it'll create it, or you can type in whatever you want. So create a template for let's say create a template for an aviation medical, including a detailed history and physical examination. So this would be something for like I think it's called a DAME. So it's like a certified physical. How do I even spell that? Physical exam. So this is for people that do the aviation medicals. They're like really detailed, long things. We have a doctor at our clinic that does them. So you could just type that into there, go generate template. It'll think for a bit about what that exactly means, and it'll generate what it thinks is a great template. Of course, you can modify it further, tell it to add more things in, or add them in yourself and generate the example. So let's give it a second, and it will generate. It definitely will. Just needs a second to think. This is a super intense task. Boom, we did it. So this is a aviation type medical, very, very comprehensive physical exam, any investigations that might be relevant, and a very detailed history on the patient. Now, you might be a DAME instructor and go, actually, that's not a very good template. We need to also include, social history or past medical history or whatever else you think you need to include. You can include that in the structure there, and then go generate example, and it will generate those specific things out for you. You might change the way that it does the assessment and plan, so you might not like how it does issues, and then so issue plan. You might just like one dot point plan. You can change that as well. So we've generated some more information there and include a bit of social history, a bit of past medical history, and family history. So that's how the template editors work. There's multiple different ways. They're designed to be as easy as possible, so you can get into it really quick. You'll find that just slight amendments can make your notes, more specific and better for you. So I'm always sort of fiddling with things. In the background, I also fiddle a little bit with our general templates to hopefully make them a little bit better. We've just had a recent upgrade this weekend, so I've upgraded our models, so they're more intelligent. Sometimes with intelligent models comes a little bit more wordy because they sort of show off their intelligence, but we as GPs like sort of brief to the point notes. We don't need novels, so I'm sort of fiddling with them a little bit to make them just a little bit more concise and only include the specific information that we need. So that's the template editor. Hopefully that makes sense. Feel free to put through any questions or call out. There's two other things that I was going to chat about tonight. So one is our creator documents, which I'll show you briefly, and then the other one is our custom document creation. I know they sound like the same thing, but they are two different things. So our create documents, they're the ones that live up here in create. So this is where a lot of our health assessments, mental health care plans, things like that live. You can modify them by going into your settings, create documents. You'll see all the ones that I've put in here. Feel free to modify them. Feel free to create your own. So for example, you want to create a document that was, this is a letter to, let's say, a letter to the court to excuse for jury duty. So you can create that as a document. You can give it a prompt, create a letter for patients to be excused for jury duty. And then whatever example that would be. So, write in the example, which would be like, dear, to whom it may concern. That sounds more intelligent. To whom it may concern, please excuse this patient, signed me. So you can show that in the menu and go submit, and then now it will be in this menu. So if we go back to current consult, we've got all our templates, we'll go create, and then we've got our letter to court to excuse for jury duty. So if you find that you do certain things a lot, medication weaning plans, patient summaries, safety nets, so on and so forth, there's tons of different things that you can add in. You might have noticed we did take away the differential generator, which was in our resources, but on a technicality, you can just put it into the creator document and it will create differentials for you. So we took it out because the lawyers advised us, but you can put it back in, and it'll give you differentials based on the consultation. It's AI. AI does a whole heap of cool stuff. So that's how you can create those documents. Now, as part of the create documents, we've also got the 3 things up here. So one is create a care plan. So we talked about that last time. So essentially, it looks at everything that's been said during a consult, and then it'll pull out relevant chronic conditions. So, diabetes, back pain, heart failure, yada, yada, yada. And then you can create a care plan with sort of goals and your allied health in there now. The next thing that we're adding into this create a care plan is goals, number of goals per condition, relating goals to specific conditions, so aligning goals and conditions. So we'll be adding some extra prompts and things in that. The other thing you can do is create a referral. So if you want to create a referral to the dermatologist and the art therapist or whatever, you can go create, and it'll create 2 referrals for you. There's no information in here because I haven't actually done the consult, so it won't create the referral, but you can create as many or as little referrals as you want. The other thing I want to talk about, though, is this create a custom document. So what this is pretty much a way that you can just create anything you want. So you can ask it to say, write a letter of support for NDIS, and it'll go create, and I'll show you some examples of how it works, and it just writes a letter. So I use this a lot for NDIS, for insurance reports, and for settling letters. Now, to really give it a lot of power, both for your care plans, your notes, your reports, your letter writing, etc., the best thing to do is to upload or copy and paste in context. So context, this field here is anything that you want to write about the patient that you either don't want to say out loud, or it's too much to say out loud. So commonly what I do is I copy and paste in the health summary. So health summary including the medication and past medical history. That way, when I create a care plan, it's got everything in there, or a health summary, health assessment, or a letter. It's got everything it needs to know about the patient to create a really great note. With our recent upgrade this weekend, it's like really intelligent, writing really good letters, really great notes, etc. The other thing you can do is you can attach documents. So if you want to attach a PDF or a referral letter or something like that, it'll take into account that letter plus anything else you put in here, plus anything that was on the pre-consult, plus anything that you've spoken out loud, and create like a really great letter. So let me give you some examples here. So this is a patient that I just did before, not a real patient. So 44-year-old male with intellectual disability, poorly controlled type 2 diabetes. We chatted about a few things. This is my generic problem list template. And then I said, create custom document. And I said, write a letter in support of NDIS application. And it's written this letter for me, signed it my name, saying they need this because they've got these sort of issues and this background, and really, whoops, let me add in someone. There we are. Difficulty, with their finances, whatever, and it's written that letter. So today, like for a patient, I had to write a letter in support of like a bank loan. Like someone was having trouble paying off a bank loan. So I said, write a letter because this patient's having trouble paying off a bank loan. We'd spoken about sort of the issues surrounding that because it was like a mental health consult, and it's written a letter, really great letter like this. I just copy and paste it into like a what's it called, a formal letter with like my name on the side, looks really nice or whatever, and print it off from best practice, and it leaves it in there, and that works like supremely well. While we're here with this one, I did want to show you our care plan creator. So you go create care plan. This is based off the consult that you've done. So say let's do the care plan for just the diabetes. That's the only thing that we wanted to do. And we'll include a preventative care summary. Now, I haven't chatted about everything in preventative care, so it'll leave out some things. But this is in the context of like, vaccines been up to date, FOBTs, mammograms, CSTs, bone mineral densities, so on and so forth. What it'll do is create your care plan, put in your dates, your conditions. So we've only selected one, so it only does one. Put in some SMART goals, tasks for patient, GP, and practice nurse. And then we did say we're going to refer off for a medication review and diabetic management. So that's sort of like a care plan for you in a nutshell as well. Now, the more information that you give it, the better the care plan will be. So, for example, looking at our SMART goals, our SMART goal is improve blood glucose by initiating metformin and achieving a reduction in HbA1c. That's not that specific. So more specific would be, let's try and get your sugars down to 6.8. or 7.1 or whatever. It didn't do that because I didn't give it any extra information. So the more information you give it, the better it'll be. Now, the other quick thing I just want to show you with the care plans is this patient infographic. So I email these off to patients. Essentially, it just creates something that's a little bit easier for the patient to sort of follow along, see when their reviews are, and see what information and tasks that they need to do. So it'll take a second to load. It's pretty like AI intense or whatever. So I'll give it a second. Now, I wanted to show you one other thing here. Here it was. So this is a patient, again, another fake patient. So 30-year-old male that's sort of having a work cover issue. There were two letters that I'm writing. So one was a return to work sort of letter for them to give to work to say that, this person can't lift, yada, yada. And then the other letter I'll write is like a letter in support, like a letter to work cover in support of the patient. So this is the return to work letter that I created with the create custom document. And then if I go create custom, write a letter to work cover outlining this patient's issues and symptoms and management thus far. That makes sense. So it'll essentially take in all the information that I've given it, which hasn't been that lot because this was like a 30-second console, but essentially it'll write all the information that it's got and spit out a letter. Now, the more information you give it, as in if you upload context, previous notes, things like that, the better the letter will be. And that's sort of how that works. Now, let's go back to our infographic really quick. This is what the infographic looks like. Essentially, it goes over the conditions. So if you have a couple of conditions or whatever, SMART goals, tasks, care team, and review period. So this is handy. So if you refer your patient off to a pharmacist, it sort of gives the patient a quick 2 dot point explanation of there's a medication review that's to help you with your medications, improve adherence. We get a report back from the pharmacist, which helps up. So we get feedback that's given to us, and then we've got our review dates for the care plan. So it's designed to be easy for the patients, essentially. So they're all the things that we sort of covered today. Hopefully all of that makes sense. We've got a bit of time for questions. I think we've got some questions in the chat, so let me just have a quick look at those. But hopefully that sort of pulled together a few things. We're going to build out this custom document creator to be a bit more, a bit more specific to things like insurance reports, work cover reports, NDIS Centrelink. And certainly it can do any other sort of reports, which is just based on, just asking AI to do this thing. So commonly what I'll do is I'll put a ton of information in context. So, past medical history, previous notes, yada, yada, yada. And then I'll go create a custom document and I'll say, write an insurance report and answer the below questions. And I'll copy and paste in, the questions from the insurer, like, what was the start date and, symptoms. Oh, that's terrible spelling. How is their function currently or whatever. So I'll copy and paste the questions in. I'll say, answer these questions based on the context. Based on context, and it will, write a really good report for you. So let me go and answer some of the questions. I think we've had a few come through. Let me have a look at those. Give me 1 second. Okay, can we change the consult in the middle of a consult? Good question. So let's say we've started a consult. So let me just bring up like a brand new one. So this is brand new. So we've started a consult. And then the patient's like, oh, I'm really depressed. And you're like, oh, crap, it's on problem list. Problem list is only going to give, like a little paragraph about, mental health, because it's also waiting for, the blood pressure and the toe and the, the scripts or whatever. So you're like, oh, crap. My consult's running down here. Okay, let's change it to mental health consult. Let's select that one. It'll now put it in mental health. So it'll change, but you can only change it to, the templates that are available. So that's why it's handy having a few templates. Alternatively though, so for example, say you did a, problem list consult, because they did mention mental health, but they mentioned a few other things, but you found that you spoke for 20 minutes about the mental health thing, and then 10 minutes about the other non-mental health thing. You can bill a 2713 and a 23, but you left it on problem list because you felt that was better. You can go create, and you could go even create a custom document. You'd say, write a note about the mental health condition, or you could go create and do like the 2715 mental health care plan, and then just like modify it to be like a 2713. So you might take out the SMART goals and things like that, and that would work. But yes, you can, change the templates before it's finished. Another question here: how can we incorporate DAS 29 scores and psych assessment from best practice into mental health care plan? So the best way of doing that is just to copy and paste it. So commonly what I do, so when I do my mental health care plan reviews, I will copy and paste the previous mental health care plan review into the context. So MHCP, whoops. So this is another little thing I'll show you, macros, MHCP. So these are just things that we've included. They're like autofill. So MHCPR, where is it? 2712. Yeah, 2712. So this is my mental health care plan review, like autofill. So I put this into best practice. What I do is I copy and paste the previous one into context. So this will be filled out with, say, depression, metazapine, suicide risk, deny. So this is my previous one. My goals, improve relationship with wife via attending, psychologist or relationship counseling, or, start back at job 2 days a week, to, overcome anxiety via reviewing with psych, whatever your SMART goal is. And then these are some things that I talk about with my patients. So I don't always talk about all these things. I don't always talk to every patient about, have you done your meditation? But I might talk about, grounding, exercise, healthy eating, things like that. So I include that here. I might do a K10 or a DAS score of, say I did a K10 of, I don't know, they were really depressed, like 31. I'll just put in that. So that's my previous one. Now that's taken into a context. So when I write my new consult or my new mental health care plan, it knows that this is what's happened previously. It'll generate an additional note based on this context, and that's the way that it can take it into context. So hopefully that makes sense. A few other questions here. Give me 1 second, sorry. Just loading those up. Come on, computer. Okay, a couple of questions. So that's a good one. I'm just trying to, we've got a Q&A on here. Excellent. So when I use the mental health care plan template, no patient details were incorporated. Whoops. I had to type them in. Any trick? So when you say patient details, like their name and things like that. So the way that AI works is, and this is like a privacy thing. So we don't include patient's name. So the patient's name doesn't enter the AI as such, if that makes sense. What that means is that we will include their, past medical history, the consult notes, etc., but their name, date of birth doesn't go in. We insert that on top as such. So the name won't go into there, and their demographics, etc., won't go in there. Sometimes, and I think we've fixed this, so see how you go this week. So since the update, there was an issue with, we call it the amount of tokens. So tokens is how much information you can put in here, how long your consult can be. So we've increased the token window. So you should be able to put in a ton of information in here now, and it should generate a better, mental health care plan, health assessment, etc. So give it a try this week, and see how you go with that one. That's cool. Next one, can we change it in the middle? Yep, absolutely. Can we attach PDFs and send a patient? I cannot integrate with BP. Can you attach a PDF? So you can attach it here with the attach button. So you can do PDF, doc, docx, text, RTF. And what it does is it extracts the contents of the PDF and puts it into context. So it puts it in here. So you'll see it come up as, like words. Can you send a PDF via MBSPro? I mean, we have resources in this section. So if you wanted to send someone, diabetes or menopause, you can email that. But we don't have the ability, for example, for you to upload a PDF and then email it, from MBSPro as such. Next one, can remove the dash before the transcript when we customize? Can we remove the dash? Yes. Not 100% sure about that question, but you should be able to do pretty much anything that make it a bit easier. So hopefully, put that question in again if I've missed the meaning of that one. But yes, you should be able to do that relatively easy. So that's the main sort of function of MBSPro as it currently stands. Editing your documentation is, it's super important, making it specific to the way that you operate, really handy. We've got a lot of features in here, like, templates, macros, creator documents, which make it easier. So I use the create custom document creator multiple times a day for letters and things like that. And patients, I wrote a letter for a patient, it was last week actually, a letter in support of housing, rental, something or other. And they're like, oh, can I write a letter? I know you're busy, I'll come back and get it later. So the answer is no, like there is no, I'll come back and get it later. I'll do it now for you because that's how I get paid. So I did it through the create, write a letter in support of, public housing or something like that. Did it straight away. And the patient was like flabbergasted. How could this possibly be? But anyway, it did work and the patient loved it. And it was like the most awesome thing ever. A couple other questions here, and then we'll probably, we'll probably finish it there. When we attach PDFs from patients' notes, wouldn't it have patient details? Correct. So when you attach patients, that goes into context. Patients' demographics don't, if that makes sense. So there's a difference between putting it into the AI and putting it into context. So context is kind of like a folder, I suppose. From that folder, we pull out information that is relevant, but patient details. So patient details, as in their past medical history, definitely go into the AI, not patient names and things like that. So it's kind of like de-identification. When MBSPro will merge with best practice. So we do have the ability to integrate with best practice. What that means is you can sync patients' previous billing history, as well as their a bit of analytics data and things like that into best practice. So you definitely can do that. So we have integration that is available on our Intercom Help Center. So if you go to here, integration, this walks you through how to do the best practice integration. It's pretty not too hard. You have to have access to this part. Not every doctor has access, so it's more of a practice manager thing. So if your practice manager can give you access or can allow it, essentially they just need to tick MBSPro via Halo Connect in the third-party integrations, and then you can do it via our integration screen, which is here, settings, BP integration. You put in your site ID, your name, details, etc., and that's how you can integrate into best practice. Now I had another question here. Yeah. So when we do care plan reviews, can we put the care plan in context and then do the review? Yeah. So that's what we're planning on doing. Come review time, which will be, I guess, end of this month when we'll start doing our 967s. Put your care plan in there, and then create the review, and it'll look at that previous context and know what's sort of going on. We're gonna fiddle with the way it creates care plans and create care plans review, because when you think about it, you'll be doing far more reviews than you will be doing new care plans. You'll pretty much only do a new care plan probably once, and then you'll do the reviews, thereafter. So we're going to fiddle with it a little bit so it does reviews, a bit more neater. We might just do the last question then. I mean, feel free to send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat. So feel free to email me anytime or chat with me on Intercom. So you don't use your work cover medical certificate or the housing medical form. So I still use those forms. It depends on what the patient says. So if the patient just says, I need a work cover medical certificate, yeah, I absolutely still use that form within best practice. Or if they need the housing medical certificate, so that specific medical certificate. But if they want a letter of support or a letter of, a letter of support is the way that I would use it. That create custom document creator. So letter support for the housing or letter support of, work cover or something like that. So not a specific document. We are toying with the idea of like a PDF filler, so it'll fill out that PDF for you. We're thinking about that. So, I mean, any feedback, send us an email, let us know. Keen to make it like a really, really specific thing. Yeah, so we'll see how we go. Anyway, all right, last question. I think I've got one more question there. I think yes. One last question. When will it fully integrate into best practice? We're waiting on BP to get back to us. It won't be before start of next year, unfortunately, at the very earliest. So it's only up to best practice to sort of give us the go. How we can do that on a technical sense. It's just we're waiting for permission from best practice, but hopefully soon. Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. Thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully that made sense, and we can make it a little bit easier to create a custom template so we can do things really, really specifically. Let me know if you've got any questions or if there's anything else that I can help with. Appreciate your time. This is all recorded. This will go up on that page. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.